Hello, people of the internet. Glenn Hausman here, your hospitality friend. We got Dave Mignano over there, and with us, TODD STEVENS of Cuningham. We're going to be talking a little bit about hospitality design. But first, I want to thank Craig Sullivan, our Friday night audit co-host and friend, because we are here at the CLIC conference, broadcasting live. Todd, great to see you.
Live.
How you feeling about CLIC?
This is great. I love this conference. I was talking to a couple other people the first time here, and they're like, "Wow, it's such an intimate conference." The thing I really love about this is the conversations we have. You don't get to have at some of the bigger conferences,
right?
You know, the stories that people have time to tell you wouldn't hear otherwise.
Yeah.
So that's been really, really refreshing to really connect with people on a much deeper level than we normally do.
I like that because some of the events, and nothing against them, are so big that it's really hard to have those meaningful conversations because everybody's rush. Those events are great, and I'm thankful to have them.
I was going to say, Glenn, and
I'm thankful to have them because they've done very well by me.
Yeah.
But I do love the dichotomy of going to a larger event, like when I was at Alice, and we'll be doing it again at NYU, and I'll be at Hunter in a couple of weeks. Really looking forward to that. But to be able to catch up with people in a different way, that's a whole lot of fun.
And I adopted two phrases that I use now more and more is you have to be in front of face to be in front of mind.
Right.
And repetition requires, to build reputation, need repetition. So you kind of, those two phrases have to work together. So the great thing about this is because, going to these conferences all the time, I always get asked, what's the ROI on a conference?
Right.
And the answer is, ask me in a year, ask me in 2 years, ask me in 3 years. You don't know. But the repetition that happens and then being in front of face, in front of mind is so important to what everybody's trying to do here.
I agree. And even if you're at one of these conferences and you just do the drive-by hello, hey, they know you're there. Absolutely. They know you're present, and that drives those relationships forward. So my whole career has been based on getting on the road and having these conversations with people and just being present all the time.
Absolutely.
So that's really great advice. And you mentioned one thing, and this is kind of like the theme of this conference here, is trying to find opportunity, right? The market is a very different place today than it was a number of years ago. And I'm sensing a big shift to conversions of existing properties and conversions of a lot of downtown office access potentially to hotels. Although I'm still scratching my head on that, which is why I'm glad you're here, because on first blush, it doesn't seem to make sense just for like plumbing requirements alone.
The infrastructure.
Well, and that's exactly right. We had a great conversation last night about this. And this is something that, Cunningham, we've been talking about internally. How do you do that? And, we've looked at it from a residential standpoint, and a lot of firms have looked at it. And I think there's a lot of literature and a lot of publications out there that are saying, look, those, the buildings, World War II buildings, 1950s, 1960s are more capable of being retrofitted because of the spans were shorter, the daylighting requirements that we have now. And when you get into the buildings of 1980s where our floor plates are much bigger, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It becomes a lot more expensive. The other problem too, specifically to California, is
hey, just talk straight to the mic. Don't worry about us.
The other element is really thinking about seismic. Yeah. So in California, and I've talked to a lot of different developers and contractors, and the notion of even if you give somebody a building for free and say, here's a building, retrofit it for me, it still doesn't pencil out.
Wow.
And because of the requirements of once you change a use of a building, let's say from an office to a hotel,
then you're subject to all sorts of different rules and regulations.
All your code has to get updated.
Right.
Everything has to be brought to current code. And when you do that, it gets very expensive. All your electrical systems, all your plumbing systems, plus the density of all those systems for a residential or hotel multiply, tenfold. So how do you do that in a way that in the end it still pencils out?
Right.
It's a really hard nut to crack. And that's the reason why you're not seeing a lot of it happening right now. It's very expensive and cost prohibitive.
Right. Do you think that's something that, maybe especially as these downtown office locations may, hopefully not, but may still sit unused, that maybe the politicians and local governments have to kind of reassess, not to make things less safe, but just make things more accessible and more availability and maybe more support for these types of projects to happen, whether it be tax abatements or some kind of reimbursement, things like that.
Yeah. If when you start looking at safety guidelines and code requirements and asking a public official to put their signature on something that somebody could later on deem to be less safe. There's a lot of hesitancy to do that. I think as we look at how to reposition that conversation in a way of identifying and doing assessments with each building individually. Some buildings, every structural system is a little bit different. I've worked on projects that are fairly new, but the developer was very efficient with how he used his structural design. They designed it very lean. Later on, we go to do renovation. Once you move something and you displace that lateral weight and it causes 10% on lateral deflection or something like that, it creates a whole nightmare of seismic issues you got to deal with. So some buildings have enough stoutness where it's not an issue. So it is gonna be a building by building feasibility analysis on what it's gonna take, what buildings are appropriate.
Yeah, you guys keep talking.
Are there markets that this type of idea may be better fit for than others?
I want to start one. A lot of people are saying markets outside of California or outside of LA make a lot more sense right now, primarily because a lot of the policies that have been put in place have made development within California cost prohibitive.
Right, very true. And going back to the point you were talking about, like once you make a change, all rules are off. Now, like I want to connect it to your theme park experience because I've seen a lot of what Universal does. They'll rip down an entire building except for a wall and then call the whole thing a renovation. And then they have a different series of rules that they have to follow. Yep. So my guess is it's like that with certain other types of structures as well, depending on the state.
Yeah, it's jurisdiction, right? Every authority having jurisdiction or HJ is going to have a different approach on that and different interpretation on how they do that. So again, that comes down to what markets doesn't make sense. I think it's the markets that don't have seismic. I think it's the markets where the structural capacities of these buildings are stout enough that they can take on these changes in use, but we still have the issues of the plumbing stacks and all that. And so there's also the notion of what can we do from a design perspective and what can and I think it's the design community working with the hoteliers and the hotel owners and the brands and really kind of saying maybe we got to take a step back and rethink the hospitality experience, the guest experience within some of these conversion properties.
Right.
Maybe it's not a traditional hotel module. Maybe we need to think a little bit differently. Now, when you think about like student housing, conversion makes a lot of sense because student housing, you can kind of get away with maybe grouping
the bathroom down the hall.
Grouping the bathrooms down the hall.
That was my life at University of Maryland in the late 80s. Right? Yeah.
So you're minimizing your court chases, other things. I don't want to give away all our ideas, but look, put the bathrooms to the exterior wall.
All right, what do you think about the idea of turning offices into full-time living, hospitality, and some sort of work kind of zone as well? I'm just trying to think about incorporating your entire life into one structure.
Well, I mean, I think vertical mixed use is the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think true mixed use is really what's going to give a lot of vitality to urban markets and to pedestrian heavy markets. So I think as we look at how do we shape that conversation, it's a challenge because there again you look at the code and certain code requirements. But I think when you're looking at as an example, branded residence is over hotel. Suddenly, when I bring in a branded residence element into a hotel project, suddenly it starts to pencil a lot more favorably because we're looking at we have a higher price point in which we can convert that real estate. So that helps subsidize everything else. And then when you put the workplace into it, that's great.
Yeah.
Provided it's a market that has a demand for that kind of element. But
well, I'm thinking if occupancy rates in offices are lower, if you could remove some of that office space and put in some other use, and then maybe be able to connect it to the folks that are living there with maybe rent by the week, by the month, by the hour, and have some permanent stuff. Might be a good combination.
Yeah, I think there's some.
I'm just balloon testing my new idea here.
I would caution that because I think one of the benefits of like downtown districts and central business districts is the pedestrian element, the public space. Right. And I think when you start giving people a place to go up and down inside the building and they never go outside the building, I don't think you're really helping the community fabric.
Right.
So as we start thinking about how to do that, I want this person that lives here to go here and work.
Right.
Because I want them on the street and providing energy and vibrancy to the street, which also enhances safety and also enhances businesses, et cetera, et cetera.
I was in a downtown last week, not here in California, and there were hardly anybody on the street. And it's just kind of sad and depressing when there's nobody around and you're in a downtown core. Yeah.
No, it's rough. And, you know, when I moved to Denver in 94, it was like right at the prime of Denver. Coors Field was under construction.
Yeah.
You know, the Broncos were getting a new stadium. The Avalanche just came into town. And
what an exciting time.
It was a great time. And the town was
the airport was closed.
The airport was under construction and opened up. And that was closed back then. You know, but the amount of change that Denver has seen in that period of time that I've been there, and how vibrant and active that downtown district was insane. It was a great time. And it still is. I mean, Denver downtown's a lot of fun. The LA, you know, started to go there, and then COVID happened, and then
downtown. What happened to downtown LA? Just really sucks because it took so long for them to get going in the right direction, and it really was. And now it just feels like it's lost years and years and years of progress.
But you know, I think if we want to look at the silver lining, so to speak, on this one, I think is we look at the opportunity to add more residential into the downtown district. You know, there's some, you know, movement of people coming back to offices now.
Yes, correct.
You can't ignore that. We are a social species. As introverted as some of us might be, we want to be with others.
I know why.
And, you know, look, in our profession, younger people suffer when they're not in an office working with older people that have more experience.
Yeah.
And trying to
honestly, I also think you miss out on opportunities to get in the mix and get promoted and all that kind of stuff.
It's harder. Now, technology's supplemented our ability to maintain our work, but is it ideal? And I think a lot of people would argue, say it's not ideal.
Yeah.
So I think we have, you know, as we look at conversions, and yes, I don't think offices will ever come back fully to what they were, but I do think that we're going to see a rebound in some of that. So as we look at conversion, what to convert, where to convert, I mean, we might be a little premature in talking about it because we might find that a lot of that office program goes back. We don't know.
Yeah.
Well, it's just there's so much unknown, right? Especially like you're talking about these downtown districts that rely so much, all these small businesses, right? I mean, I'm in New York City typically where I work, and you know, I still talk to some of the local bar people that, you know, we all partner with in different ways. And they still say, you know, yes, has it gotten busier? Yes, but it's still not busy like it was, right? They still haven't never seen it get back to that pre-pandemic level, and that's obviously costing, you know,
also the bar scene. The weirdest thing is I'm seeing around my kids' generation. I have just about 20-year-old twins. They're not drinking like we used to drink and being social in bars like we used to be. And I know my kids are underage, but I'm just saying. Generally speaking, for young kids in that age
that people after work, they just want to go home.
Right.
They don't really want to socialize after it. I'm not really sure, you know, why that is. I'm not educated in that side of the business right now, but that's something I've heard talked about from all aspects, right? Because it's not just also bars, right? It's also your local, you know, deli or a random food place that's usually we get a lot of lunch business, right?
Yeah, I just think about all of those support businesses and stuff like that, and how frustrating it is. Suzanne, Dr. Producer Suzanne is texting me right now saying we have to look at the camera and not each other. Thank you, Suzanne.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne.
Yes.
But I can't
We're all
help
looking
it.
at you right now, Suzanne.
Yeah. How do you feel now? A little uncomfortable, are you? So, Todd, let me ask you this. You know, one of the other big topics here, speaking about conversions, is I'm seeing the emergence of a lot more hotel brands that are focused on conversions, right? I know you're not necessarily in this every single day, but how are you seeing it based on the big picture right now?
There are hotel brands that are interested in it.
Yep.
You know, at Global Hospitality Talk.
Yep.
There was a couple brands there that mentioned interest in going into that, and they said, look, if there's ever an opportunity to get into a conversion, we'd love to be part of that conversation. And what I would love to do is get a focus group together of, you know, brand, developer, contractor, investors, even somebody legal, and really let's get some brain power around the table and really see how to solve this problem. Because, you know, we all sit around, we talk about these problems all the time, but what do we have to do to solve the problem? And then how can we collectively as a hospitality community come together? We got a bunch of really smart people, way smarter than the three of us.
Oh yeah.
So I can probably
that doesn't say much.
huddle around the table and probably come up with some ingenious ideas. I mean, like I said last night, I said, well, what if we put the bathrooms to the exterior wall, make the bathrooms of glass, so you get daylight come through.
Right.
Put all your plumbing chases on the exterior, put these vertical fins on the building. You're not penetrating the slab every time. You know, and then how does that change the hotel configuration? How does it change daylighting? You know, we have to be a little bit more creative about how we solve some of these things to get the cost down, so it makes a lot more sense. I don't know if that works, but you know what? If we sit with a contractor and an operator and say, hey, how does this work? How can we change the operational flow to them? What do you do with all that leftover space on these big floor plates when you surround it with rooms and you have a ton of, excessive amenity space? And maybe there's tennis space downstairs where they're using that space for storage, for merchandise, whatever. Then you got spa, you got different amenities on the decks, restaurants, whatever. It's all internal facing, no daylighting.
Right. I'll tell you, I was at the Moxie AC, or I think it's AC Moxie in LA. Please check out my interview with General Manager Stephen Cho, who's really awesome guy. You'll love that conversation. What I liked is they have the 8th floor that they subleased, and it's all these different dining concepts and stuff like that. And that adds a lot of energy to that area as well, and drives business to the hotel. I think
absolutely. And I think you're seeing that with hotel brands and more bringing in third party F&B operators, because I think a lot of hotel people realize, I've heard for the longest time that F&B people say, well, hotel people saying F&B doesn't make us money. It's kind of a thing we do. But I think if you get a good hotel operator or a hospitality F&B operator, somebody that's really hospitality minded. The partner in, you look at what Dream and Tao did, right? Yep. Hugely successful in Hollywood. And they generate a lot
when the Dream Downtown first opened in New York City and Tao did the rooftop bar, that really raised the level for what a rooftop bar could be, particularly in a hotel.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Dave, do you have any more questions on this particular topic? Because I got one other topic.
No, honestly, I'm just enjoying listening. This is really kind of educational for me. It's not really an area that I'm too knowledgeable about.
All right, so one of the things Todd does is focuses on theme park stuff. So I always got to talk to you about this. And this year, I swear I'm going to get to that IAPA event with you.
Yes.
Yes. That's in November or something like that, right? I really hope to make it this year. But I'm seeing such an explosion in creativity right now in theme parks. And I don't just mean what's going on with Epic Universe, a brand new theme park being built in Orlando that's going to really give Disney a run for the money, but not just the regional parks that these big boys are building, but even the regionals are starting to get more sophisticated types of theming to it. How are you seeing the growth of that part of the business?
No, absolutely. I think, technology is changing a lot. And when I say technology, it's not just about the immersive element of technologies and a lot of the immersive ride components where you're in a screen dome. I think you go back, Cuningham, our first, real theme park element was Back to the Future.
Right.
And, since then technology's evolved a lot.
Dude, people so want that ride to come back and and they're like, well, now that The Simpsons is going away, maybe they'll bring back to the Future.
And so you don't know, but it's the technology from the experiential standpoint, but also the technology in ride technology, the technology in fabrications of show set and theming and all of that has come a long way, where it's making it much easier for smaller parks to do more extensive theming.
Right.
So it's really exciting to see what's happening in that dynamic. Also, the ride technology and the type of rides that you're getting, they're just doing all sorts of crazy, wacky stuff that, it's a big change from when I grew up and I went to Cedar Point every summer.
Right.
I just wanted to get on the fastest
totally
I could.
I can't handle those kinds of rides anymore.
It also is just, again, another example of magnifying the point that the generations are looking for more and more for experiential elements that they want to have. They want to have these things. And I don't know if you guys saw my LinkedIn post. I was at an event and the guy was talking about themed architecture not being authentic. And I'm like, well, the material itself might not be authentic. The experiences are.
Yeah.
And I'm there with my kids and they're having an amazing experience. And that's very authentic. That's very real. More so than some of the other things I've seen. So I think I said this before. I think theme designers are extremely talented designers.
Absolutely.
And I don't think they get the credit they deserve because they're doing something, they're just kind of replicating something else. But the level of attention they have to be able to do that well and make sure that the sprinklers don't show up and all the other crap that shows up. Man, if some of the hospitality designers out there had used half as much of sense of awareness about every little detail goes, it'd be better.
And that's why I think Epic Universe is going to really change the dynamic of how theme parks are created. If you look at the artistry, I've been watching construction videos. There's this guy on X, formerly Twitter, called BioReconstruct. There's all these great aerial photos of all the theme parks and stuff. The work that's going into like the Dark Universe section, which is bringing back the classic Universal monsters, is phenomenal how it's looking. They're doing a How to Train Your Dragon World, and the painting work is going on right now. It looks amazing. And the Super Nintendo Land with that Donkey Kong ride, just the artistry that goes behind this it just blows me away. And then just people don't really understand what an amazing world that these artists create.
It really is. I mean, to really create that sense of immersion and detachment, right? And it's a psychological element that we all fall into, which is the escapism, right? We're all seeking elements of escape from the normal daily routines. And so anything we can do to foster that, whether it be in hospitality or in a theme park, I mean, we're succeeding in creating wellness and creating more engaging, more impactful experiences for our guests. And I think by doing that, we're actually, benefiting society in a lot of ways, humanity.
So what can our side of the hotel industry learn from that side of the business when it comes to creating great experiences for customers?
I think not being so uptight. So uptight about, it's okay to have something look like a pirate ship once in a while. The kids love it, right? You get tired of it, but you can have elements that are maybe more literal in the expression of the idea. I think taking the sensitivity to how to make things go away. And I worked on a clubhouse outside of Orlando, Bella Cuningham, and they brought in theme painters from Disney that painted over the speakers to make them go away. And it was a brick vaulted ceiling, you know? And you look out and you could not see the speakers. And that level of attention to detail. Now, obviously those all have costs.
Yeah, totally.
But if you're doing a property, there are certain places to invest that money. And, oftentimes I look at ceilings and they're Swiss cheese. It's a pet peeve of mine. A lot of people don't look at ceilings. But I walk in, I look at ceilings, look at how things are aligned, and is it rational, and does it just kind of go?
There was a classic casino resort in Las Vegas that closed and reopened as a real cool hip brand, and then you look at the ceiling and it felt just undone as opposed to cool Brooklyn warehouse or something like that, right? Now they've reinvented the property again, and everything feels a lot more cohesive and as it was like meant to be design wise, because they paid attention to those little details over there. Anything else you want to add today, my friend?
That's it. No, thank you guys for having me on, and always a pleasure to be here and hang out with you guys. And
it's good to see you, Todd.
Good catching up.
This is great. Now I want to thank you guys for watching. Make sure you download the audio podcast. If you want to watch us on video, you know where to find us. Wherever you get your shows, we are there. We'll see you guys next time. See you.